Good evening. Before the final plenary meeting of our fourth Moscow Economic Forum, we staged a contest of the students' works. We would like to hand over awards and announce the winners of this contest. For this, I would like to invite Director of the Moscow Economic Forum, Maria Sereda. Good afternoon. I would like to invite the winners of the students' contest, Chelingaryan Aranjun Gagikovich, Altai State Technical University by Polozov. Excuse me, Shereshova Irina Igorevna, Ivanovo State Energy University by Lenin, Mel'nichenko Viktor Olegovich, Perm, and Remenuk Oksana from Bryansk State Technical University. So the third place, Chelingaryan, for measures on total reorientation of economy. Second place, Shereshova Irina, for qualitative, deep analysis of the experience of economic reforms in the United Arab Republics and Singapore. The first place, Viktor Mel'nichenko from Perm, for analysis of capabilities of the society to influence the decisions of the government, and we have a special award for maximum repost of information in social networks. Our students also received prizes from our general partner, Kommersant. My congratulations. It's very nice to have so many young people taking part in these events, in plenary sessions and roundtables. And coming back to the summary, and I'd like to tell you that all the events which were planned, they were very effective. 17 roundtables and plenary sessions which were also planned. It's a fairly big scope of events, and I visited 5 or 6, moving from one place to another, and every event was really very interesting. A lot of wonderful and brilliant speakers, and a lot of very serious content in their presentations, and powerful discussions were there. And in every large and big and small effects were at the most highest levels. And now, if we could give the floor to every moderator and representative of a round table, I believe we would spend here till the midnight. And I think this is an important part, but basically all our round tables and conferences were broadcast online and are recorded and will be found on the site. And we heard a lot of interesting presentations during roundtables and conferences, and some of them, as moderators, they will brief us on what happened there in the course of so the agenda, and it will be given 5 minutes, and you will tell us how this happened and what were the most discussed topics and what decisions were taken. And maybe 1 minute will be left for private opinion. And the first to speak, the man who became known thanks to the Moscow Economic Forum, maybe he will disagree, Mr. Potapenko was also famous before the Moscow Forum, but in a couple of days there were certain videos in internet accumulated millions of viewers, and this public is greater than some of the TV channels. And he explained that communicating my partners, and Dmitry said such things at this event, which everybody kept in their mind, but couldn't formulate so brightly. And in some comments or blogs, it was mentioned that new stars appeared at the sky of the Moscow Economic Forum, and there are people who are really making brilliant presentations, and that is true for Dmitry Valerievich. He took the part in the roundtable State and Business, and these discussions were really very interesting from most various businesses, and I think Dmitry will brief you more on that and will answer what is the phenomena of Potapenko.
Well, the phenomena of Potapenko will be reviewed at a later stage and in a different situation. My personality is not of such importance, especially in the economic forum which was conducted today. And I was not actually today a speaker, but a moderator of a conference, of a part of a conference, a part of a plenum. The subject matter of our section was state and business, how to survive in the anti-crisis program proposed by the government. I would like to expand this subject matter, whatever is done with our country, with our economy, with the people of this country, whether it is an individual case or is it something of a more general nature. When we see how people become poorer and poorer over the last 5 years, the number of paupers exceeds 22 million people, and they think that in fact it's more than 30 million people, and then we are engaged in certain adventures and we're not paying enough attention to the economy. And if we engage in the economic activity, but that result in 200,000 criminal cases, which our president speak of, but it appears that the guarantee of our constitution exists only for himself. I never see governors or procurators who would run to the president say, you said that 200,000 criminal cases, unjust cases, and the part of those cases are from our region. We will review those cases and will return the money and the property to the middle business. So perhaps that subject TV clip was not, say, shown on the first national channels, and they did not request the president to give their files of our entrepreneurs from our region. Perhaps we will see it quite soon. But nevertheless, in fact, what we see is that from high rostrum we see here speeches about support of medium-sized entrepreneurs, but little is done practically. This was the subject matter of our discussion when we saw presentations of the long-haul truckers when they say engage in illegal trafficking of drugs, but on the other hand, they are being eased out from the market. Then we saw presentations made by restaurateurs where the market is closing down. This is a service area. Well, we had the presentations from production activities where instead of the support, we see that in order to capitalize one company for we see propaganda which contradicts what is actually taking place in the real economy. And this was exactly the subject matter of our discussion. Entrepreneurs and citizens have to live not in the underwater, but in sand underwater. This perhaps the only chance for survival of all those present here under the economic course pursued by the government, which is not likely to be changed, because if we change some of the officials in the upper echelons of the boss, but if we do not change the system of decision taking, then we can place there good people. But if they do not have the right to change the system, will become the same ugly personages which are now at the top of our government. We have to cardinally change the system. Now the system is a protective system. It appears that we all, from the, we're keeping watch of something, but where the losses of the economy are becoming larger and larger. That is the key issue, and that was subject matter of our discussion. That's it. I will be pleased to take questions, if any. Well, Dmitry has retained his minute. If there is a short question, well, okay, thank you. I have to run but I will be available elsewhere. Thank you, Dmitry. Today is a great day. 17 years ago, on the 24th of March, 1999, a plane which was flying to Washington turned its course in over the Atlantic Ocean. They turned back. Evgeny Maximovich Primakov was the famous passenger of that plane. That happened 17 years ago. And it was not by chance that one of the events which was held in this morning was a roundtable discussion dedicated to reforms implemented by government of Primakov and Maslikov. I participated in that round discussion. There were a number of great speakers, good moderator, and that round table proposed Nigmatulin to make a brief presentation, provide a summary as to what ideas were discussed and what issues were addressed, what proposals were made. But before I give him the floor, I would like to say that when Primakov was flying to the United States, he was flying for the negotiation, and there was a huge agenda for negotiation, including many economic issues. One of the issues which was in his portfolio was signature of an agreement between the state and an American company about sale of the controlling, packet of the Rosagromash for no. And if the plane had landed in America, then that American company would buy the Rosagromash, and as in many other production plants in Central Europe and Eastern Germany in particular, that plant would be bought by a competitive company and closed down. But now Rosagromash is shipping its industry products to USA, to Europe, and we want to say a big thank you to Evgeny Primakov on behalf of all our agrarians that we now have our own production of agricultural hardware. We have Rosagromash and we have our own producer. Robert Iskanderovich, you have 5 minutes to make your summary, present your summary. First of all, that round table was conducted in a very specific way. All speakers were disciplined and stick to the time limit. All highlighted a special particular feature of that government. They were all professionals, mature and responsible people, Primakov, Maslikov, Gerashchenko, Matvienko, and others. But I have the deepest respect to Evgeny Primakov. He was a member of our presidium. I saw him quite often for last revels. And at the same time, there was a mixture of concern. In 1999, he and Lushkov headed the Otечество All Russia Party, which had all the chances to win, but both of them conducted the election campaign in a very bad way. And that was the point of bifurcation. And sometimes that means that the goods should some be with fists. What we highlighted at our round table, to Primakov and Maslikov and Gerashchenko as well. So that government managed to bring down inflation by the factor of 3. They froze tariffs. They fixed the ruble exchange rate. Many speakers against the background of positive compared with the current situation. And currently, with this is the 50 billion rubles is the income made by as a result of speculations, and they highlighted interests of specific groups. Import replacement was the engine of the production at that time. Presently, it's not the case. These funds are sucked from the real sector to virtual financial sector. They drop the production again. Well, many people now highlighted the apathy in the people, degradation, both in the upper echelon of the authority and the lower echelon of the authorities. At the same time, they highlighted that there are resources in the experience of the Shoigu when he became the Minister of Finance. We saw a completely different style of operation, but at the same time, from the fifth place in terms of industry in 2014, we fell down to 15th place in the rating, and our president governs a miserable country with a high processing. We were termed as miserable country. A lot was talking about bringing back engineers to governance. So, lawyers prevail in the management community. This is an issue. This is a danger. The state should be governed by the engineer who creates. And Zhvanetsky requested, bring back engineers and scientists. Even Zhvanetsky wants them back. 80% of the administrators are within basic education. At the same time, interaction with the authorities is said, in order to talk to the government, we have to be silent. That was the citation given. Lack of the responsibility for words, and I can say that this doping scandal. So I think the Minister of Sport should resign. No, he is not resigning. Nobody is removed. Nobody is fired. If an accident ever took place, then the minister should resign. And it's very important that the alternative to the current course should be thoroughly calculated, not at the public rallies, but this forum is of a tremendous importance. We should renounce unnecessary construction projects in the power industry. We have 15 gigabyte extra of insufficient power generation capacities. We run the danger of becoming center Ukraine or Syria. The number of people working in the engineering industry is reduced by the factor 3.7. In addition to, except for Kavaz and Otavaz, we do not produce anything. It is not comfortable to produce a taxation system. It is not online. The collection of taxes only 50%. The government is proud of that, but it's not more than 50%. Well, we should remove VAT, because this is shackles for business, contraband of our economy. Well, the number of export and import is reduced by 500 billion. In import is same. That's why, one example, we are proud of the agriculture, but we have not stepped up production of the grain, but indeed the poultry. Now we are sufficient with the poultry, but the feed stock is also imported products. Planning, many spoke about planning. Indeed, it's not the type of Gosplan which was used in the times of the Soviet Union, but it was spoken a lot about that. We're undervalue in indicative planning, inter-branch balance, the balancing of economy. So those power-producing generation plants were built without taking into account balance. So those balances have not become the part and parcel of the life of the balance of the state budget in the social state. It would be minimum 50%. and we have it only 30%. So that's why we have social expenses in social state with 20-25%. We have only 10% for education, health, science, and culture. That's why we are not a social state. We have only the embryo of social state in our country. Relations between prices and salaries was not a good one. So we made an appeal to the young people, so that young people should go in for politics. Well, they tried to say to us that policy is a dirty business. Yes, indeed, if young people leave politics and scientists leave the politics, that will be a dirty business. Well, our problems will not be solved by all by themselves. A very important item is justice. I visited Israel recently on my business. I'm winding up. I want to tell you that if I had been a Jew, I would have gone left for Israel. People love their state. They all serve in the army. They have controversies, but all respect their own state. This is an outstanding achievement of the Israelis. Concluding, historical precedent was when the authority appealed their opponents to save the country and gave it a very short period of time. So it should not be wait for the same failure for political and economic. We should get to this experience of Primakov government, and the government turns to the creative forces. It should not be for half a year, for the longer period of time. And the proposals was made and was adopted enthusiastically to memorialize the memory of Primakov and Maslikov, and to attach their names to our International Economic Forum, their names. And Gerashchenko also mentioned, but Gerashchenko is still alive, so it will not do. There are two events, dear colleagues. I am an engineer by my profession, and I offer you to, while addressing economic issues, respond to a question. If I were a director, if you were a president, what you would do in your sphere? Think about that, not just speaking generalities. Two events which were not imbued, did not imbue our intelligence with, say, huge queues for the Serov picture exhibition and long queues at the Moscow International Economic Forum. And those are two great events, and I congratulate you. So pseudo-modernism, pseudo-liberalism, say, is something which people are fed up with, and they want to get better and clear understanding of the real problems of the day. Yesterday, the participants, Ryuzan, Decan of Economic Department of the Moscow State University, was one of the speaker of our, forum, and we are thankful to the Moscow State University. And yesterday he spoke to the Kommersant FM, and he said that the government of Primakov, in practice, turned out to the most liberal government of Russia over several years. I think this is a very good, assessment of the activities of him. The economy started to operate, to grow, and for 10 years our economy developed, pursuing that trend. But Robert Iskanderovich touched upon a political issue. Traditionally, for the last 3 years, the fourth one recession dealt with political issues. We wanted to answer a question how we can influence the economy through politics, and why this tool is not operating today. Instead of such fourth session, we had a ground table discussion. It was the third political force, activization of regional leads. Mr. Strelkov, head of the Novorossiya, Russia, he does not need actually any presentation. I know him very well. Igor Ivanovich, what was you discussed at your round table?
It's very nice to talk about political system to a man who is only very new here. We never had a discussion, but there was one representative from Rodina, a party, and all those present. But for me, and Mr. Kongurov, or Comrade Kongurov, who is under restriction, and we came to the conclusion that we are facing a systemic crisis, both cultural, political, and the crisis of power. Or we are on the threshold of this kind of crisis, and this threshold is almost happened. And what also was underlined, both from the stage and from the hall, two political powers, that is the state power and the so-called opposition, they have very little indifferences. They are very closely linked. And basically, it's very difficult to find the difference and to make borderlines. And even this is non-systemic opposition in their ideological positions. They're extremely close to the power, and strategically, both the acting government and the opposition, they are standing on the same platform, the presumption of Western values. It is necessary to get integrated into the Western world, and on the presumption of priority of international law and rulings over national legislation. And this position is not accepted by us, and all of us came to the understanding that it is necessary to have the real force which will protect national interests of Russia, even to the drawbacks of international community. And that power should be independent from the acting. This force should be independent from the acting power. It should develop its own economic process of resurrection of our country, and should not be interested in powerful social turmoils. It's the party of creative activity and construction, and not the party of destruction. It should become a real opposition to power, but creative opposition, directed not to overthrow the government. Both the government and administration of the president, all the economic system and economics and politics, and the accent and the focus was made, as was declared, was placed on the regional elites as a possible basis for this third force, which could provide economic support. The regional elites found themselves in the worst possible position when they are deprived of the system of taking the decision taken by the state. Although they are the majority of the state elite, their interests are not taken into account in any way, and their standpoint, which could be or could serve the purpose of resurrection of the country, objectively, they are nationally oriented forces, and may become our foundation as a third force, all but for Rodina party attributed the same to force number 3, and this force should be created quickly before the crisis hits the country in a terminal phase and become the guarantor of preservation of political peace in our country. And specific questions are most welcome, and we would be able to respond. Traditionally, one of the topics which was created at the Moscow Economic Forum, these are agrarian and industrial complexes. Yesterday we had a conference, agrarian and industrial complex tendencies, and traditionally we discussed issues of food safety, today's status of villages and settlements. Vasiliy Mel'nichenko, director of Galkinskaya farm. What else was spoken there? And the question goes to you on the example of Galkinskaya, how things are among the agricultural manufacturers, how successful was for you the last year, and tell us, please, the basic ideas and thoughts which you heard at this conference. Thank you. I live in Galkinskaya, and I am the director of agricultural farm. It was a big farm. However, in the 90s, it was destroyed. Now it is. We have 76 people. We grow vegetables. We have a rabbit farm, 30 or 40 tons of meat, and also prepare grain products. We have 9 tractors we managed to acquire, and out of 7,000 hectares, we managed to process only 1,000. We don't have the money to expand those turnover capital banks, as you say. I can't say that could we call banks what we have, because the bank is the financial institution of the development, and we have banks as exchange office. And no banks are existing in Russia. This is only for Gref and Konstantin to pay 3 million rubles a day their salary. So only because of that reason, I could assure you, people like to work in the village, and not only in the Galkinskaya. I also visit lots of other places. But what is important, about 2 days ago, I visited Penza, and we discussed the development, and the Ministry of Agriculture says that they are #1 in the Povolzhsky district 3 months ago in Ulyanovsk, and the Ministry of Ulyanovsk also holds the first place as well. And Saratov and Samara, all of them are claiming that they hold the first place. However, the hospitals are being closed in these villages. Out of 5 schools, 2 schools were closed, and out of 3 hospitals, 1. That is the situation. The salary is very low, and I think that if in Moscow nobody is producing anything, 60 or 70,000 is more or less a good salary. We must have about 80,000 because we are the manufacturers, and we pay. It's in winter 5, 7, or 25, sometimes 40,000 rubles, and I think that is the situation, and nobody will stay there. We want to work. A lot of plants and the combined food for animals is there. We have lost a lot of head count of cows and very little number of tractors, and I was the general manager since the year of 2000. We could not even buy the harvester from Rosagromash, because even to make the first investment. Yes, that's what the situation of my farm. But these are thousands of dozens of thousands of my competitors are working in the same, and only 27% of farms. These are agrarian holdings, and they were working with profit. The rest was working with losses. And again, because prices for vegetable decreased, we also suffered heavy losses. Yesterday, we discussed at our section, which was called 107 people were present at this session, foggy perspectives of our agrarian complex, and everybody agreed that the climate becomes better because it is spring now, and peasants of Russia, this is the most humiliated class because of this agrarian policy. Schools are closed, hospitals are closed, their children cannot study Russian language, they couldn't use the doctors, and Markov said we'll be living for 120 years. The question is, how could we survive at all? And I would say President recently met the people and asked, comrades, peasants, how do you live? And the peasants say, yes, we suffer a really very hard life, and you're good, you go ahead and continue to do so. We had a lot of presentations. We proposed ideal solutions for the development of the country. We understand everything. We are not the government, unfortunately. And the government also, they understand, but they don't do anything. What was our proposal? We approved the draft of our declaration. There is no clause about the local self-governance. Without self-governance at the local spots, no programs will be executed. Nothing will happen and nothing will help us. The local self-governance, and the money should be directed there. We will not agree to the agro-industrial complex because this is elimination of the village style of life, development of cooperation. There is a instruction of the president on cooperation. Again, the balanced market and certain plans, social conditions, everything is mentioned, and nothing is said about the agro holding. Nothing is said. The president never mentioned about the theft in the budget of agro-industrial complexes, and this is a very important clause. We wanted to have the business and all entrepreneurs supported the idea of freedom, the freedom of choice. And we have now the oligarch and family capital. We will not have the opportunity in such a situation. Unreasonable agrarian policy simply kills the people from the village. Unfortunately, that's the situation. I would interrupt. Pavel Grudinin. He moderated this roundtable, and tell us, how could you invite the young people to go to the village where the purpose of the program by 2020, the average salary should be at least the level of the half of the salary all over Russia. And it's not very critical, as if we talk about the young people. I received a serious dose of optimism. I saw a bright presentation, and I couldn't even leave, and that was dedicated to the youth business from zero problems and solutions, the full whole of young people, 20, 25 years of age, and it was very interesting to listen to those bright presentations and the quality of speakers. The topics were very interesting and serious, and yesterday one of the plenary sections was dedicated to the positive agenda, and some mentioned that this is invisible positive agenda, but today I saw it because young people and young ladies, they spoke about crisis. This is the type for our opportunities. The problem for one group of people is the opportunity for others, and they were discussing the issues about the crisis of trust, which prevents them from the business development. And they also spoke about business, selling and buying and make some margins. They were talking about industry, about new types of services, about creative things. And this business of youngsters, they created several associations. They got committees and regional divisions. They communicate with each other, self-organized, and I was inspired with the hope that everything will be fine if we could create proper conditions for that. I'm giving the floor to Mr. Kuvikin Nikolai, Iron Deer, Executive Director of the Community of Young Entrepreneurs of Russia. He's a graduate from the Moscow University, and Nikolai also develops the business. Having completed this education in Moscow, he's developing business in Altai region. He is involved in the breeding of Altai deer, and he will tell us about this very interesting round table. Thank you very much. So this is a very important event. Yes, we are breeding the Altai deer, and we are making special products out of the horns of morels, and we sell it here in Russia. We had a very interesting discussion. We had many people from different fields, from manufacturers who were coming from the service side. Some were planning to work in Russia. Some were thinking about the future and what would be his inheritance, what he would leave. And being romantic, everything looked very optimistic, and everybody spoke about the opportunities. Of course, even if it is a crisis, we'll find a niche of our own. And young people with their energy and ability to push, we actually try to inspire them and try to start up your businesses, which requires fairly low money and funds for entry into business. A lot has been discussed in terms of opportunities. And we also discussed the available services, the scientific park of the Moscow State University, which supports young entrepreneurs, and that is very encouraging. Earlier, I never heard, and now we're going to use this opportunity.
Quite unexpectedly, we had a problem, a crisis of confidence, not only as a crisis of confidence, lack of trust to a young entrepreneur when people would mistrust you, distrust you because of your young age, but a crisis of trust among people. And there was a problem which was detected, and we immediately found an answer: a community of young entrepreneurs. I'm an executive director, was due to Elena Bocharova. She was the founder. She's the founder of our movement. We had our association embraces more than 43 regions. Any of our members of our community come to any region, and within one handshake, he or she or two, he will be able to find a partner in that region, and people would provide good advice to him or her. This is a very great resource, which in our unstable time is very like an anchor, good anchor. And that's it. That's the bottom of my sec. I would like to add that young entrepreneurs, who are they? Well, we do not have a definition. Young scientist is somebody below 35, but now who is a young entrepreneur? So I think that until the moment the government thinks, we should think of ourselves as a training school for big entrepreneurs. And until that moment, we were not likely to see any stable strategy applicable to young entrepreneurship. And sometimes some people say that young people do not want to become entrepreneurs, but be bureaucrats. But if we show every day on the federal TV channels, say, advertisement about young entrepreneurship, then I think young people will flock to entrepreneurship, and we are prepared to start. Political support from the government, from the society is required. I would like to quote words of one of the speakers who advised, guys, smile and do not watch TV. There was yet another interesting, engaging presentation at that round table. Young people who arrange discussion, connections between young entrepreneurs and scientific groups in research institutes, and they stated that the policy of replacement works. They said that if 3 or 4 years ago we used to chase the companies trying to offer them specific solutions which we develop in our laboratories, now big companies, private and government companies, come to universities and are searching for young entrepreneurs. They articulate their problems. The problems may be technological, or problems associated with the fact that previously they used to buy abroad has become much more costly now, and they need alternative domestically produced. So there is a demand for such solutions, and the young scientists and entrepreneurs are happy to become engaged in this. So thank you for your optimism. Those who was not present at that round table, I invite you to watch the recording at our site, and you will be infected with the same feeling of optimism. On top of that, there was a red dotted line in the discussions, the presentations, that resources of Russia are limitless, and people, mineral resources, climate, water, fresh water, and sciences are available. We should make use of those resources. But the participant one of the conference under the title #1, which was dealt with the quality of life, from quality of life to quality of population. Mr. Lokusov, director of the Institute of Socio-Economic Issues, of demographic issues. In one of the interviews, read about the numbers where you substantiate how rich our country are and how rich our population is. And I would like to quote some of those very glaring numbers. That would be great. And to tell us in a few words how we can raise the quality of life and to make our population more qualitative. Like, dear colleagues, dear participants of the forum, from top of my head, I remember that 2% of the population of our planet, with Russia, own 30% of natural resources of our planet. This is a very great advantage which our history and our nature have given to us. Dated on the MCS data for comfort habitation on the planet, per one person we need 2 hectares of land. According to their calculations, 60% would be remain unturned, 20% should be given for the housing, and 20% for production. Processing from those, starting from those simple numbers and taking into account the fact that our country has become more northern-like, well, we can accommodate in a comfortable way 500 million people. We should understand that Russia today is the only large self-sufficient power of the world, which is able for many generations ahead to provide for comfort conditions of life of our people. It's this situation maybe to somebody's liking and not to dislike of others. As far as our conference is concerned, it was nicknamed from the quality of standard of living to the quality of population. There were too few people from the production side. Predominantly, we had the representatives of foundations, non-commercial organizations. The subject matter specified as the quality of life is understood by you. I believe there is some kind of vogue for this term. There are now of research groups studying this issue. There are about 4,000 parameters to measure the quality of life. Whatever statistical data were used in the presentations, we saw general trend of the participants of our conference to be critical. I don't want to pronounce the name, the figures. Then the level of poverty grew, and the share of paupers grew from 22 to 39% of the population. I want to say about commercialization of the social sphere of medicine. I borrowed some numbers which I thought were of interest. In Russia, between 1995 and 2013, the share of the own funds the population paid for medical services grew from 17% to 48%. In Brazil, it went down from 39 to 30. In China, from 46, and in India, it went down, especially in the Western countries. So we are moving in an opposite direction in the social sphere as compared with other countries of the world. 60 places in our 60% of the vacancies in our university is paid for. We are short of time. I do not want to dwell for a long time on that. But I would like to say that it's strange against this background of such unity of speakers, where the data for many studies, surveys would speak that on the overall the population fares well. Numbers 66% are confident in that tomorrow, next day. They believe that the next generation will live better than they live, that they're satisfied with their life. So as a result, a high rating of the present leaders of the country, a total lack of the potential for mass protest. or 2-3% of the population will be prepared to be engaged in a mass protest. Why is it so? What is the situation? Seems to be a critical one, crisis one, but the population is quite amicable and peaceful. I think that the reason for that is important to understand in this context. The peculiarity of the mentality and the quality of what we try to measure, quality of the people in this country. I would want to quote, as an example, one citation. I borrowed it from Peter Sorokin writings. This in any society depends on the property of its members. The property, society comprised of idiots will never be a perspiring, thriving community, but society made of willful persons will create a better forms of communal life. So I think that the final result, which we should aim for, is not the level quality of life. It's important, but I think we should rather speak about the quality of the people residing in the nation. The population of Russia has survived for the next time, for the adapted itself, have adapted. There are many reasons for the lack of mass protest, but the big question, what is the price of this adaptation, and whether we needed this adaptation to this situation. So thanks to this price paid, well, that will be the define the opportunities for our future development. And from our point of view, results of surveys made by our institute say that each new generation, in terms of the level of health or education, is lower than the preceding generation. I think this is where the great danger lies of the price which we paid for the adaptation to a new social reality. Thank you. Thank you for a very engaging presentation, a summary, and I think that we should stop the presentation of summaries of 6 roundtables. There were more than 30 such roundtables and conferences, and they were very impressive. And each of the presenters would be great to speak. But now I suggest that we should move over to the most important part, an important part of this. I would like to give the floor to Ruslan Grinberg, and he will be he's co-chairman of our forum.
Yesterday, when you opened the forum, you gave us a very important fact that when it is full eclipse, everything comes through, and these words may become reality. What are your impressions where we succeeded and what we achieved? I would like to start from what I said yesterday. Position now is good, but not hopeless. Of course, for the 4th time, we get together and are telling about the same things, how things are bad, that nobody is listening to us, and that's the end of the story. But I think that we are thinking in the same direction in one sphere. We think the same, that we don't like the economic policy which is pursued by our government. And different arguments are being given why President is too slow, why he's not firing some of the ministers. And this is also a kind of a fun that we are having here. Some protests and speculations are taking place. Some ministers were not fired. And I would say that we are living in a very strange world, in a very strange country. On the one hand, we see a clear understanding that basically the economic course is destructive to the economy. And it is important to underline what Professor Lokusov said, a good friend of mine, that there is some kind of a tendency of degradation of education. And we have to study this more thoroughly, because I know many young people who are extremely talented, and perhaps it is related with technological revolution, but basically we observe the privatization of various sides of our life. But on the other hand, we see that the people are sometimes very honest in responding certain questions and challenges. They are happy with the president and how the foreign policy is being pursued, but they are unhappy what kind of economic policy is pursued, as if it is pursued by someone else. It's an interesting phenomenon. And what do we have to do with that? There are two ways to convince the president and the prime minister. Yes, these are good guys, but something has to be changed. And some of my employees in the institute, we are writing, but nobody is listening to you. Why? Why should they listen? Who are you? What are you? And the pluralism which reigns our forum is unique and unprecedented. You will never find anywhere in the world. And sometimes this pluralism even exceeds certain limits, but this is a very good platform for everybody to express their most diverse opinions. And again, we will write letters and reports saying that we do not need the future based on raw materials and unfair tax system, which is not collecting properly the funds, and they are not channelized to industrial side. Yes. And every time this race goes on. And how could we act in such a manner so that we are honest that when you get privileges and subsidies, it's a big topic for us, but in this way or other, we once again achieved what we wanted to achieve. We wanted to expand the number of people who were interested in these changes. We have many more young people, and this is very important for the young. And with greater optimism, they look on life. And Mr. Potapenko said a phrase, why they do not change, why there is no protest, and I'm sure Mr. Lokusov, and why there are no social protests, because young people are not poor. Poor are old people. And old people, they cannot do anything. And maybe young people, they don't have the ability for making career and making using a social lift. That is obvious. And before thanking you for participation, I would like to remind you that, first of all, we must be the citizens. I don't want to be a moralizer, but several times we heard the thesis that whatever you do, the government will act on their own perception. But I think this is a deadlock position. Thanks to the perestroika and the beginning of the 90s, you could hate this time or consider them traitors, Eltsin and Gorbachev, but thanks to them, we are sitting here. We are not being arrested or deprived of our freedom. It is necessary to understand for every one of us, we have a fairly large field to express our ideas and will. And I call upon you. I know that there is a lot of apathy in life. There is an apathy in my own family, but this blocks any change of the situation because there are two ways to change the policy. Number one is to write a good charter, and we're going to do that. We will forward that to Mr. President. We will see tears in his eyes, and let's create a new life for the Moscow Economic Forum. What are the chances? Out of a million, maybe there is one chance. And the second, and soon we are going to have elections in the Duma and the elections of the president. And the president have chosen the people whom he trusts. They're having higher educations, they're good economists and good rectors. It means that if we want to change something, we have to act in the spirit of the competitive political system. Competition is the spirit and the soul of the market. I don't want to aggravate this dramatic picture, but the same is true for the politics. Without competition, you can't change anything, the economic policy. And now about politics. Today, here on this stage, we heard a thesis that there should be some kind of a third force. What is a third force? What kind of a party? We have a fairly broad spectrum of parties who also stand for the change of economic policy. And the third force is something dark. And it is dark in my perception. It is expressed by the person who is the chairman of Novorossiya. And what is Novorossiya? Is it a country of what? And I hope strongly that our president of Russian Federation, has taken the decision not to deal with Novorossiya, for it is very dangerous for the country. If Crimea is something more or less acceptable, these are the guys playing football. Somebody says this is hand and this is parsed, and they continue further. We hope that Crimea will be accepted in the same manner, but Donbass will never. And Donbass will never be forgotten. And we could not fall into illusions, and the sanctions will never be withdrawn. And I don't want you to admit the influence of some kind of a third force. We need to study and to see how right we are and the people whom we would like to support during elections, and nothing else could be chosen. I would like your responsible attitude towards the elections. I'm sure that the power and the authorities, they will definitely use their advantages and will misuse their responsibilities. And I would like you to finish and close this forum without any further aggravations. Thank you, Ruslan Semyonovich. The floor is given to co-chairman of Mr. Babkin.
Thank you. Ruslan Semyonovich stated that we all one in criticizing current political economic system, but we diverge in other issues, and we do not propose a specific make proposals at the forum. But still, I believe that at our forum we are able to offer an alternative, and the result of the forum is that in the minds of millions of people, a certain notion has emerged that the modern status of the vector of development, the liberal model, which is without any philosophy, is not the only model, but there is still an alternative to the situation. We have pointed out to the great wealth of our country, resources of our country. We many times stated that we have all the conditions for developing Russia for dynamic, sustainable development. This was something which was mentioned by many speakers, and I think this line was operated by many, levels at the competent level. It was highlighted from many aspects at various roundtable discussions and conferences, and indeed, we are not a political party. We have a great environment of pluralism, and we display different approaches. But as far as the Donbass is concerned, I would like to believe that the president and society of Russia will not jettison Donbass, and we all want that Russia should help those who live in the east of Ukraine and the rest of Ukraine to rectify set their situation there. Right. It's for the fourth time that we conduct this forum, and it's very seldom mentioned that we're going rounds. Yes, we stay the same thing, but look at the church. For 2,000 years, it stays the same thing and plays a very important role in society and stabilizes and guides the society. I don't want to compare our forum with the church, but we are growing, and the interest to the forum is growing, and the results are becoming more practical, and I think that 65% want changes in this country, see these changes, and are prepared to do a lot to implement those changes. Is a great phenomenon by itself. And this is one of the results of the forum, in my opinion. And I think that if millions of people want something, then it's going to happen. It's bound to happen. Know that the time, velocity of time increases, and I believe that those changes may happen sooner than we believe pessimistically enough. I'm very happy that at this forum, many times the name of Primakov and Maslikov were mentioned, and indeed this famous change of course over the Atlantic Ocean made by Primakov was a famous change of route course, and the government of Primakov on the activity of the company new Commonwealth was very effective. We felt it with every when Primakov came to power. We at our varnish factory after the crisis, the pyramids of GKO, which were founded by liberals, and after when Primakov came, growth started. When they simply said that we're going to have a different policy, then the growth of industrial production started in Russia, and after the change in the course of the aircraft of Primakov, a decision was taken by the government and the leadership of the Rosagromash and the shareholders of the plant to give the plant not to the largest company, authoritative company for management. And if our American colleagues were given Rosagromash, then Rosagromash would not be available now. It was given to 28 funny guys, young guys, who told that we know how to resurrect Rosagromash. And that happened after Primakov changed the course of his aircraft over the Atlantic Ocean. And this forum going on, the fact that we have finances to conduct the forum, we have the ability, we have the desire to carry on with the production, and I, as one of the co-chairmen of the forum, is happy about that. So had Primakov been not change the course of his aircraft, this forum would not have been possible. So it's very important, and the idea is very interesting to give the name of Primakov and Maslikov to this forum. We should discuss it. Indeed, we should refer to the history of our country. We have Mendeleev, who was a great economist on top of being great chemics. We had the writer Griboyedov, who is a writer, but he was an economist and a diplomat as well, who was and so we had a wealth of great names in our history of our country. And when we respect our predecessors, then we will be able to move forward. I also visited a number of roundtable discussions, conferences. Some of them were a great success, some of them were not as great success. And I think that others should prepare speakers in a more meticulous way. But nevertheless, I think the majority of the roundtable and conference were really interesting. And I would like to highlight conference where moderators were Krupnov, Lapushkin, Bolderev, and Dmitriy. I do not belittle the importance of other conferences. Of course, those are the conferences which I attended. So once again, I would like to say, I have the feeling that our forum, our community, has already gained a certain moral strength. It generates interest in the society. We influence the society. We have certain recipes to offer to the society. What are we to do right now? The central mass media ignores us. The authorities ignores us. Each of you present here is a person who has made his or her name by himself or herself. So I propose that every person should carry on with his or her work in an everyday mode, be an active citizen, should everything necessary possible at his place to translate the ideas of our forum, that everything may be much better and that should be active. Pessimism is a non-constructive approach. We should be optimists. I would like to believe that we will alter a little bit our charter, and then we'll deliver it to the president and we'll present it to the society. And I think we have gathered many signatures, but I know that many people have signed the charter. So perhaps we have already outgrown this format. Well, at the opening session, there were too many people, and not all of them were able to. Perhaps we will think about better accommodation of the forum, and I think that the forum is on the right course. And I would like to thank the Moscow State University, our speakers, our organizers, supporters, volunteers who supported us, and all you participants of the conference who took a great part in this conference. Thank you very much indeed. That brings to the end our forum. We invite you to the forum 2017 next year. Goodbye.